The shocking paradox about life, Alan Watts wants you to know. There's a moment in every human life when we stop and ask ourselves, what am I doing here? It might hit you in the middle of a sleepless night, or while staring out the window of a moving train, or in the quiet stillness after a long day. That moment where everything seems strangely suspended and the usual reasons for living don't quite seem enough is not a breakdown, it's a breakthrough. And Alan Watts, one of the most mystical minds of the 20th century, believed that if we truly paid attention to that question, it would unravel everything we thought we knew about how life works. Because the paradox he reveals is both shocking and liberating. The more you try to make sense of life, the less you actually live it. And that might be the most important thing you ever hear. We grow up being told that life is a problem to be solved, that we need to figure it out, master it, conquer it. We're handed a map, education, career, relationship, success, and told that if we follow it properly, we'll reach the treasure, happiness, peace, fulfillment. But here's the twist. The map is made up. It's not real. And most of us are so busy following it that we never realize we're walking in circles, chasing something that was never out there to begin with. Thoughts would say, you are not a stranger here. You didn't come into the world, you came out of it. That changes the whole game. Because if we are the world, not separate from it, then why are we so desperately trying to find a place in it?
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound insights.
Let's get real. Most of us live life like it's a task. We treat existence like an exam we didn't study for. We're constantly trying to be good enough, productive enough, spiritual enough. But Watts flips that on its head. He says, what if you don't need to justify your existence? What if your being here is already enough? That's the paradox. We think we need meaning to live, but actually, we need to live to discover meaning, and not in some grand world-shattering way. Meaning, Watts suggests, is not something you chase, it's something you notice. It's already here, hidden in plain sight, waiting in the moments we usually overlook. Think of a cat. Yes, a cat. It doesn't ask, what is the purpose of my life? It doesn't sit in existential dread, wondering how to leave a legacy. It lies in the sun, stretches, yawns, and experiences life as it comes. And yet somehow it's completely whole. We, on the other hand, with our advanced brains and endless information, are riddled with anxiety, constantly seeking, never satisfied. Why? Because we've forgotten how to just be. Watts believed that this forgetfulness is at the root of modern suffering. We've become so entangled in abstraction, ideas, systems, beliefs, that we've lost contact with reality itself. And here's another punch to the ego. The self you think you are, the one you're trying to improve, protect, and promote, it's not real in the way you think. It's a construct. Watts compared it to trying to bite your own teeth. You can't do it. The self cannot observe the self directly. What we call I is just a swirl of thoughts, memories, and roles, none of which are stable, none of which are the real you. So who are you then? That question, Watts would say, is not meant to be answered. It's meant to be lived. And the moment you stop trying to pin it down is the moment you start to feel free. Let me ask you something that might rattle your worldview. What if everything you've ever done to feel secure was actually keeping you from experiencing life? Our obsession with control of our time, our image, our path is built on the illusion that life is dangerous and must be tamed. But what if life is not a problem to be tamed, but a mystery to be embraced? Watts encouraged us to see life like music. You don't listen to music to get to the end. You listen to enjoy the unfolding. Each note, each pause is part of the beauty. So why do we live like we're rushing to the final chord? So that's the paradox Watts wants you to see. The more we try to hold life still, the more it slips through our fingers. The more we chase meaning, the more we miss the meaning that's right in front of us. The more we try to define ourselves, the more we become trapped in roles that were never ours to begin with. It's terrifying, isn't it? To realize that all your striving, all your effort to get somewhere might have been a distraction from where you already are. But it's also liberating, because once you see through the illusion, you can stop pretending, you can stop performing, you can start living. So here's the real question. What would your life look like if you stopped trying to make it make sense? What if you let go of needing a reason, a label, a purpose? Would you feel lost? Or would you finally feel alive? Why trying to be somebody is exactly what's holding you back. Let's take a brutally honest look at the way we live. From the earliest age, we're taught to be somebody, not just a person, but a personality, a brand, a resume, a curated projection of ourselves designed to win approval, admiration, and security. We're told to define ourselves, to stand out, to be special, but Alan Watts would call all of that the greatest cosmic joke. Because the harder we try to be somebody, the further we drift from what we actually are. And here's the shocking paradox. The moment you stop trying to be important is the moment you become real. Now, this doesn't mean we shouldn't have desires or that we should reject ambition. Watts wasn't advocating for apathy or passivity. What he was revealing is that the source of our striving is often rooted in fear. Fear that we're not enough unless we become something more. But what if that fear is based on a fundamental misunderstanding? What if we've confused the mask for the face? The role for the actor, the idea of ourselves for our actual being? Think about it. When you introduce yourself, what do you say? Your name, your job, maybe your hobbies, but none of those are you. They're descriptions, useful, sure, but not your essence. You existed before any of those labels. You were alive before you were a student, an employee, a partner. So who were you then? Watts would say that the attempt to define yourself is like trying to draw a boundary around a cloud. It's too fluid, too alive. The self isn't a thing, it's a process, a dance, a happening. And yet we cling to the idea of being someone. We build up identities like fortresses, not realizing they also become prisons. We want to be seen a certain way, so we censor ourselves. We suppress the parts that don't fit the image. We live in constant tension, trying to maintain an illusion, and it's exhausting. Have you noticed that? The performance of it all, the anxiety of not being enough or being too much? That's the cost of trying to be somebody rather than just being. And the irony, the painful, hilarious irony, is that the people we admire most are often the ones who drop the act entirely, the ones who are unfiltered, unapologetic, fully alive. Watts invites us to drop the mask, not to become someone new, but to become no one. and in doing so to become everything. When you stop identifying with the ego, the story of me, you realize that life isn't happening to you, it's happening through you. You're not a fragment in a meaningless universe, you're the universe experiencing itself in human form. You're not a noun, you're a verb, not a static object, but a living event. Let's ground this in something real. Have you ever laughed so hard that you forgot yourself completely, or lost yourself in a moment of awe, watching a sunset, listening to music, holding someone you love? In those moments, you weren't trying to be anything. You weren't calculating or performing. You were just there, fully present. And that's where the magic happens. That's where life becomes vivid, electric, undeniable. Not in the role you play, but in the presence you bring. Here's a question worth sitting with. What would happen if you stopped trying to be you? Not in a self-destructive way, but in a liberating way. What if you stopped narrating your life and started living it? No script, no role, just this breath, this sensation, this moment. How much of your suffering comes from trying to hold together a version of yourself that doesn't even feel true? We spend so much time trying to find ourselves, as if the self is a fixed object hidden under a rock somewhere. But Watts would say, you don't find yourself, you realize that you were never lost. The self is not a thing to be grasped. It's the background awareness in which all experiences arise. And when you stop trying to define it, you begin to feel it, not as a concept, but as a direct, living truth. And here's the kicker. The more you let go of being somebody, the more deeply connected you become, because when you drop the ego, the separation dissolves. You're no longer a solitary me fighting against a hostile world. You're part of the dance, the wave in the ocean, the breath in the wind. And in that realization, life stops being a struggle and starts being a celebration. So, I'll leave you with this. Who would you be without your story? Without your achievements, your failures, your image? Would you feel empty or finally free? Why, life only works when you stop trying to make it work. There's a strange thing that happens when you start letting go of control, not just in theory, but for real. Life begins to reveal itself in ways you couldn't plan, predict, or manipulate. And that's exactly what Alan Watts meant when he said, trying to control the future is like trying to control a dream. The more you tighten your grip, the more things slip through your fingers. But when you loosen your hold, when you stop trying so hard to make life work, something paradoxical happens. It starts to. Let's be honest. We've been trained to treat life like a system, a machine, a formula. We optimize our schedules, calculate risk, follow blueprints. But life isn't a machine. It's not mechanical, it's organic. It breathes. It moves in rhythms, not straight lines. And yet, we keep trying to force it to conform. We want guarantees. We want certainty. But Watts reminds us, life is fundamentally and it's not broken because of that, it's beautiful because of that. Think about the last time something truly magical happened in your life. Did you plan it? Did it come from a spreadsheet or a checklist? Or did it arrive unexpectedly when you least deserved it or weren't even looking for it? Watts would say that life has its own intelligence far beyond the mind, and when you stop trying to outsmart it, you begin to flow with it. That's not a vague spiritual idea. It's a radical shift in orientation. It means trusting what arises. It means dancing with the chaos instead of constantly trying to impose order. But trust is hard, especially when you've been taught that your worth is tied to outcomes, that success means control, that happiness is something you earn. We're scared to let go because we think everything will fall apart. But have you noticed something? Even when everything does fall apart, you're still here. You've survived every worst day. You've endured every failure. And in many cases, those breakdowns became breakthroughs. So what if the universe isn't against you? What if it's just not interested in playing by your rules? Watts often compared life to water. Try to grab it with a tight fist and you get nothing. But cup your hands gently and it fills you. That's how surrender works. It's not giving up, it's giving in to the rhythm, to the moment, to the mystery. And in that surrender, you stop resisting reality and start responding to it. That's where real power lives, not in domination, but in alignment. Here's the paradox. We're taught to make things happen, but most of our suffering comes from trying to force what isn't ready. We push relationships, careers, even our own growth before their time, and when they resist, we think something's wrong. But maybe things aren't falling apart, maybe they're falling into place. Watts would say, muddy water is best cleared by leaving it alone. You don't fix a river by damming it up. You let it flow. And this applies to your mind too. The more you try to silence your thoughts, the louder they get. The more you try to be spiritual, the more artificial it feels. But when you allow yourself to simply be, without trying to improve or impress or evolve, you begin to touch something real, something alive. You begin to feel the pulse of life, not as a concept, but as a sensation. So what does this mean, practically? It means dropping the obsession with figuring it all out. It means being with what is, fully, honestly, without resistance. It means showing up to your life as it is, not as you think it should be. That doesn't mean you stop caring, it means you stop clinging. You still take action, you still dream, but you're not attached. You're not trying to wrestle life into submission. You're partnering with it, listening to it, trusting it. Ask yourself this: what are you trying to control right now that's actually controlling you? Is it your image, your future, someone else's opinion? What would happen if you let that go? Not recklessly, but consciously. What space would open up in your life if you stopped fighting what already is? Because here's the secret. Life doesn't need you to make it work. It's already working. The sun rises, your heart beats, the trees grow without your intervention. You're part of that same intelligence. You don't have to override it. You just have to remember it. And when you do, life stops feeling like a problem to be solved and starts feeling like a gift to be received. So let me ask you something wild. What if your deepest peace is waiting on the other side of everything you're trying to control? Would you be willing to let go just a little to find out? The final twist. Why death, not success, is the key to living fully. Let's talk about the one thing we all avoid, the one truth we pretend we can ignore, the one reality no amount of money, fame, or control can outmaneuver: death. Alan Watts didn't just acknowledge death, he embraced it as one of the most important teachers we have. He believes that our fear of death is the root of almost every other fear. But here's the paradox, the twist that changes everything. It's only when we integrate death into life that we truly start living. Take a moment and really sit with this. Everything you love, everything you are, everything you've built, it will pass. You will pass. This body, this identity, this little bubble of me will dissolve. That's not a threat, that's a fact. And yet, instead of facing it, we build our lives around avoiding it. We chase success, pleasure, distraction, legacy, not because they're inherently meaningful, but because they distract us from the terrifying silence of impermanence. Oh, but Watts would say, that silence, that's where life begins. You see, our obsession with success is often just a mask for our fear of death. We believe if we achieve enough, we'll matter. If we accumulate enough, we'll be safe. If we leave behind something great, we'll live on. But what if all of that striving is a clever way of avoiding the truth that we are impermanent? What if the only reason we chase more is because we're terrified of the moment when there's nothing left to chase? And yet, Watts flips that fear into freedom. He reminds us that the very thing we fear, death, is what gives life its intensity. Imagine a movie that never ended, a story with no climax, a song with no final note. It would lose all meaning. The beauty of life is its fragility. The very fact that it ends is what makes it valuable. And when you truly understand this, not just in your head but in your bones, you stop wasting time, you stop pretending, you stop holding back. Watts once said, "Death is the only thing that teaches us that we are not separate. When we die, we return to the same mystery we came from. We dissolve back into the whole, and that means we were never really separate to begin with. We are waves on the ocean, not isolated droplets. When the wave crashes, it doesn't stop existing, it returns to the ocean. That's not annihilation, that's reunion." So what does this mean for how we live? It means that every breath is sacred, every moment is unrepeatable. It means loving harder, letting go sooner, laughing deeper. It means saying what you need to say, not because you're trying to win, but because you know the clock is ticking. It means being here now, not because it's trendy or spiritual, but because now is all there ever is. You don't need to be afraid of death. You need to be afraid of never having lived. You need to be afraid of reaching the end of your life and realizing you spent it trapped in a story, a role, a performance you thought you had to maintain. But the truth is, you never had to be anyone but yourself. Not the self you constructed, the self that was always there, quietly watching, quietly waiting. So here's the final question, the one that could change your life if you let it. If you knew you were going to die 1 year from today, no more, no less, what would you stop pretending? What would you start doing? Who would you finally allow yourself to be? Because that's the paradox. Death isn't the opposite of life. It's what gives life its urgency, its fire, its meaning. Success won't make you immortal. Achievement won't keep you from the grave. But presence, love, courage, those are eternal in a different way. They ripple outward long after your body is gone. They touch people. They awaken others. They make life matter. Watts challenges us not to conquer death, but to dance with it, to see it not as a shadow, but as a mirror that shows you what really matters, a mirror that asks, have you truly lived, or have you just survived? So maybe it's time to stop chasing more. Maybe it's time to stop trying to make life work. Maybe it's time to stop performing and start being. Because you are not here to prove yourself, you are here to experience yourself, to feel, to connect, to awaken. And when you live like that, when you live with death in your heart, not as fear but as fuel, you start to see life not as something to conquer, but as something to celebrate. You are the wave, you are the dance, you are the firefly blinking in the dark, just for a moment, and that moment is everything.